when a company says they use organic food or they don't use antibiotics, it doesn't tell you anything about the impact that this industry is having on wild fish through the viruses and through the drugs with the to treat sea lice, which are not antibiotics, they're neurotoxins. So yeah, no, it's a messy, dirty, nasty industry. And there's one paper that was written in Scotland, and they said, it's funny, people think they're eating farm salmon for the health of their hearts when the fish themselves are dying of a heart disease.
These salmon farms, I feel they do a lot of manipulative marketing, and they convince a lot of chefs to come on board. And I've seen some famous chefs and some local chefs here that are 100% convinced, like the True North, one of the Cook aquaculture farms, is like totally the way to go. And you go on their websites and it says no antibiotics are used in the fish, and low density farming, and the food is good. What's the overall, or what are some things that kind of debunk that? And I always tell people, well, yeah, of course they don't use antibiotics to treat lice. Lice is an antibiotic. You use slice. You use something else. You're using a harsher chemical than an antibiotic. So am I on the sort of the right line in saying something like that they're still using stuff? Maybe they're not using an antibiotic, or maybe they are using a certain antibiotic.
Well, they're also unable to use antibiotics on viruses. So you're right about the sea lice. They cannot control those sea lice. Every drug they throw at the lice, they become resistant to it. So they use more and more toxic drugs. That's the problem with what's happening with the lobsters, because anything that makes a shell is being impacted by these drugs, this heavy drug use. I mean, the salmon farming industry is basically in an escalating drug war with the little sea lice, and the lice are winning. But the looming problem that is really growing and unstoppable is the viruses. And so the ISA virus outbreaks, which is in the influenza family, in the east coast of Canada is enormous. It's jumping farm to farm throughout the provinces. There's no way to really stop this virus, and they are selling these for people to eat. And then here in British Columbia, it's the Piscine virus, which is a heart virus, and it damages the salmon's hearts. And there was a lot of cover-up going on that the virus wasn't here, and then that the virus wasn't causing any problems, and those things have not been true. Science was published just last year saying that, a paper that I published is saying that 45% of wild salmon that are exposed to the salmon farms are infected. But if you go very distant from salmon farms, almost none of the wild fish are infected. And furthermore, the wild salmon that are infected are having a lot of trouble getting up the rivers to spawn because, this is a heart virus. It loads up their red blood cells. And then a government scientist published a paper saying it is causing disease in farm salmon. And these viruses, that phrase, go viral, it means something. It means it gets out there and it gets into wild fish and it explodes and they move and they infect other fish, and it just goes on and on and on. And I'm very scared for the future of this coast, for British Columbia, because of salmon farming. I think if we don't get the industry out on land, that it's going to drive these fish populations to extinction. There's been research published. There's no place in the world that wild salmon are surviving